friends, it's Rachel here. Thank you so much for checking out the Cold Brew Chick YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a bit rockin'. Because we are actually going to be going over Green Day's coffee. That's right, if you're familiar with the band Green Day, they have started their own coffee brand called Oakland Coffee. And there's a bit of a funny story that goes with this. I went recently to Expo West, which is a big convention that happens every March in Anaheim. And a lot of natural food companies and coffee companies come out to display their products. And I had heard that Oakland Coffee was coming, but I had no idea it was associated with Green Day. I just knew it was a coffee company and I wanted to check them out. So I went up to their booth and it was pretty crowded. And back behind me, someone yelled out, "Oh my God, that's the drummer for Green Day." And I know Green Day. I listened to them growing up and I still do. And I know who Billy Joe Armstrong is, but kind of like with Rolling Stones, I know who Mick Jagger is. I don't know who any of the other band members are per se. So when the guy yelled out, "That's the drummer," I thought, oh cool, that's awesome. So I got talking to Mike Dirnt, who, if you're a Green Day fan, you now know is not the drummer. He's actually the bass player. I didn't know that though, and without our conversation, we never got to talking about Green Day, we just talked about coffee. And so we took a picture together and I posted it on my personal Instagram saying that I met and was hanging out with the drummer of Green Day. Well, Mike saw that picture and thought it was kind of funny that I called him the drummer and not the bass player. So he posted that picture onto his own personal Instagram. And he has like close to 600,000 followers. And in the span of over 3 days, I got all these comments and messages from Green Day fans upset that I got, the person wrong, saying I wasn't a true Green Day fan. It was pretty funny. I've never had that happen to me before. Even though I never claimed to be a Green Day fan, I just said I was drinking coffee with a band member from Green Day. But anyway, little funny story about that. Let's get to their coffee, which was the whole point of actually meeting him anyway. Oakland Coffee. What's really unique about their coffee brand is that everything is biodegradable. Now you may not know this because I sure didn't. Coffee bags, the bags that we usually buy our coffee in from like the grocery store, are not biodegradable. So when we're done and we throw them away, they just sit there. They're like plastic. And so what their mission is to stop both that happening with coffee bags and with the Keurig pods. I'm sure you guys know by now, Keurig pods are probably one of the worst things for the environment. They don't break down at all and can last forever and ever once you throw them away. So what they've done is they've created Keurig pods and coffee bags that, when thrown away, completely break down and are totally better for the environment. Plus they say it's some pretty awesome coffee too to top it all off. So we're going to go ahead and make this into a cold brew. This is their Atomic Garden Blend, which is a medium dark roast Colombia and Honduras. And to test it out, we're going to be doing the Kolob Cold Brew Maker, which is a little metal mesh that goes into a mason jar that allows you to steep your cold brew in any way, shape, or form. So let's get into it. The Kolob Maker looks like this. It's a mesh filter that you can fit in any wide mouth mason jar. And how you determine what size mason jar per grounds, they come with this little recipe kit in their thing to let you know, depending on what size mason jar you have, how many grounds to use. And then all you do is fill up the amount of water that would fit in your mason jar and you're good to go. So this one is a quart. This is a 32-ounce wide mouth mason jar. So for this one, we're doing 75 grams of ground coffee. And remember, with cold brew, you want to do coarse grinds. The reason being is that when you do fine grinds, number one, it's a lot harder to filter out at the end. And also number two, finer grinds extract faster. So whenever you have something like cold brew where we're steeping it for quite a long time, 16 up to 24, some people even do 48 hours, which is insane. If you have a fine grind, what's going to happen is that it's going to over extract the coffee, which isn't a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of things in coffee we love, but there's some things in coffee that we don't necessarily want to pull out. And that's like some of the bitterness and some of the acidity, especially with cold brew. So when you have a finer grind, that's more likely to happen, even if you're doing a small amount of steeping time, like 16 hours. So coarse grind is always the way to go. Anytime you have to do something for an extended period of time, you want to go a bit bigger just to kind of balance it all out with the time and ground ratio. So we got all our grinds in there. And then literally all you do is you just pour your water in there. And what's nice is that because it's a wide mouth, you don't have to worry about the grinds overflowing or whatnot. I didn't get enough water. But what happens is with the grinds, even as they rise, because it's a wide mouth, they don't rise up too much. You might have noticed with some of the other makers that we've done on the channel that we have to be careful when we're pouring the water that we don't pour it too fast because the grinds will rise with it and can overflow. But you don't have the problem with this one because of the wide mouth, which is great. So assuming that we fill that all with water, you go ahead and you just take the lid, pop it on there. And what's nice with the Kolob is that it has a rubber lining around the filter, so it keeps it airtight, which is great because whenever we make cold brew, we want to prevent oxidation. We don't want any oxygen really getting in there. It's going to affect the flavor. And if you're keeping this in the fridge, then make sure that none of the aromas from any of your foods or anything like that get in and affect the cold brew. So we have that all sealed in. Now Kolob actually recommends steeping this at room temperature for about 16 to 24 hours. I started with the fridge and then I went into room temp and I did it for 16. I did what they suggested even though I really wanted to do 24. But let's go ahead and try it out and see how it is. Alright, so now let's go ahead and try and see how it is. Remember, this is the one that was steeped for 16 hours. And it should come out as a ready to drink, but if you wanted, if it's too strong, we could add water. But let's see how it is first. Good aroma. It's a bit of a sweet aroma, which is really interesting. That packs a punch. Holy crap. I was not expecting it to be that strong. But it's still really smooth, which is awesome. It's a little oily. It's not as clean as I would want it to be. And that's something I've noticed with these types of filters that are the kind of mesh silver, is that they don't quite filter out the oils as well as like a paper filter or like the felt filter with the toddy. It just can't quite do that. So if that's something you're looking for in a cold brew, you may not enjoy these types of filters. That's just not something that they're willing to do. But it still tastes great. It's very, very smooth, which is surprising considering how strong it was. As far as flavor notes go, you get a nice caramel. It's a really mild caramel in the beginning, and there's actually a nice kind of like vanilla cream at the end, which is very surprising. I don't know why, but because it's the Green Day, I thought it would be like a really like strong, crazy, bold coffee, and it is, but it's, as a cold brew, very smooth and very pleasant to drink. I give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think it makes a great cold brew, and I'm sure it makes a great hot coffee as well. The filter is great to use for basic home use. If you're someone that already has mason jars at home, it's really easy to just grab this and put it in any mason jar to make any quantity of cold brew that you'd like to have. It's really easy to use. Once you're done, you just take it off and you dump the grounds and you can use it again. Hey friends, thank you so much for joining me for this video. Don't forget, Cold Brew Chick is more than just a YouTube channel. I'm also a blog, brand, and a podcast. I have all the links down below to all of my content so that you too can find and create the best cold brew for you. Thanks for joining me!